This is the Comedy Time Capsule with Nina G. I'm doing interviews to see how comedians are dealing with and recording their experiences around the COVID crisis and the quarantine. And we've been in quarantine about a month now. And today and you correct my pronunciation. Today I am interviewing all the way from India. I am in Oakland, California. She is in India. Where at? In India?
I am in Pune, Maharashtra.
This is Shweta Mantri. So hello, welcome.
Hello, hi. Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.
And did I get your name kind of right?
Kinda, almost. You're almost
okay.
There. It's not Shweta, it's Shweta.
Shweta.
Yeah.
Shweta. I'm writing that down.
Perfect.
So I can say, okay. All right. Yeah. So hello and welcome. And you're my first person that I've interviewed outside of the Bay Area, much less outside of the US. So thank you. And so I'm just going to go ahead and start. If you could say a little bit about kind of where you are first in the quarantine in India and what's going on and kind of what the country is going through right now.
Okay. So I am not really following the news.
Good idea.
I get anxious, right? So I am in a city called Pune, which is in Maharashtra, which is in the same state as Mumbai. Pune was among the first most affected cities in the country. Like when like the COVID count of Mumbai was probably 1 or 2 or maybe 0. There were about 20 patients maybe in Pune, which is about a month back, like a month before the lockdown was announced. Right now, I'm really not good with the numbers, but I think we're somewhere around 300-400 maybe. I'll have to check because I don't really see the figures. But now Mumbai has overtaken Pune in terms of the numbers because Mumbai is a larger city and the population is kind of dense over there. But yeah, we are one of the hotspots for COVID, and yeah, we've been under complete lockdown. Like exactly a month back, like I stepped out last on 18th of March, and I came back and then I just didn't go out. And also because I stay with parents who are like around 60, so to sort of avoid any contact with COVID or something related to that. And I'm a person with a disability, so I walk with crutches. Yeah. So I am actually quite used to staying indoors. It's not for the first time that I've been indoors for about a month. Like generally when it's like raining heavily, it gets tough for me to go outside and manage myself. But yeah, the lockdown has been tough because it just came quite unannounced, right? Like the entire COVID pandemic came unannounced, and we're all coping with it. I stay with my parents, and we haven't managed to stab each other with my crutch, and that's great. So yeah,
lovely. That is wonderful. I don't know if I could be a month with my parents and not do that. So good on you guys.
Thank you. Yeah.
Now, can you tell me how many years you've been in comedy and what a typical week or month might look like as a comedian before all of this?
Okay. I've been doing comedy for about, I'll complete 3 years in August. Yeah. And I actually did my first performance in December 2016, but then I took a break and then I started doing open mics in like August 2017. So yeah, it's been 3 years. And what a normal week looks like Uh, yeah, basically, so I'm in Pune, which is not really the um, hub of comedy, so to say. Like the three main cities where comedy happens in India are Mumbai, Delhi, and Bangalore, right? Like mostly Bombay, because it's got all the big comics. So at any given day in Bombay, you'll have at least 4 to 5 open mics every day. Yeah. Um,
Wow.
yeah. Along with other featured shows and solo shows. Yeah. So that's how active the Bombay scene is in terms of comedy. Pune is not that active. We try to have about 3 to 4 open mics a week. And then there are featured shows on the weekends where big artists come, and then we like open for them. So yeah, I've been trying to do 3 to 4 open mics. Like in a good week, I do about 4 open mics plus one featured show and maybe one opening act. But that's like a really good week. Otherwise, it's anywhere between 1 to 4 shows and one opening act maybe. And the open mics also do get cancelled on a regular basis when we don't have audiences to come and watch, right?
Oh,
So yeah, that
really?
happens. Yeah.
Okay. And so, see, in San Francisco, what happens is we start the open mic, and then we have audience because people are just it's like we hijack people's good time. I think my friend Mean Dave says that, and then we force an open mic on them. Um, and then and then they sit through 3 comics and not the best material, and then they leave, and then we just perform 2 comics. What you're saying is you guys actually get an audience, and if you don't have an audience, then it gets canceled.
So yeah, so there are two kinds of venues, right? One venue is a performance based venue where you have a proper dedicated stage and space for performance, and the audience is just sitting. And then there's a restaurant slash bar kind of performance where the audience is there already, and you to just get on stage and get talking, right? So the former happens the former happens more, right? But what happens in the restaurant bar kind of gigs is that even though we're performing, even though there are like about 20 people, no one's really paying attention, right? So you don't really get the feel of seeing a joke land, or you don't really get an applause break when you're supposed to get an applause break, right? So we try to do less of those, but of course we need those as well to get a reality check of where we really stand, right? Because
Yeah.
if they're really funny, then the audience will respond, right? No matter what. Yeah.
It sounds just like here. Can you say, if you know, you're a bit younger than I am, so you may not know, but here in the United States, um, like comedy went through a major change in the 60s, where you had comedians like Lenny Bruce and Dick Gregory, who really like started stand up in the way that we know it now, who really changed like that voice, who were able to talk more at the audience and to the audience, instead of like, hey, I'm gonna tell some jokes, ha 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 ha, and like bring like real issues. And I've watched your stand up where you talk about stuff that I know as a disabled woman means something to you. Um,
Yeah.
and that is because of people like Lenny Bruce and Dick Gregory in the 60s. Then in the 70s, it caught on into more mainstream uh, uh, America, where there happened to have comedy clubs popping up. And that was kind of the first time that you saw the Improv and the Laugh Factory and the Punchline in the 70s and the 80s. Then in the 90s, it took off in on TV, because it was a cheap thing to put on TV, because you could have an hour special, and there isn't any background, there isn't anything other than the comic and a microphone. So do you know kind of like how the rise of stand-up comedy happened in India?
Yes, I do, sort of, mostly. I think I would be right over here. Um, I think stand-up comedy, I mean, uh, yeah. So when I was in college, okay, and I didn't know anything about comedy, which was about in 2008 to 10. Um, for us, comedy was Russell Peters because he was the Indian represent on the global map. Yeah, um, but like that was back then, and then I think that's also when comedy in India had started sort of flourishing,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think the first gen comics sort of came out somewhere between 2008 to 2012 maybe, right? And unfortunately what happened in India is that mm, comedy started along comedy started at the same time YouTube was getting big in India, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, so unfortunately what happened, so of course comics would put up gigs, put up their bits online, right? So unfortunately, like even today, you're not a good I mean uh, comedy became synonymous with YouTube videos, or the YouTube kind of content, right? So like even today, outside the comic world, people don't know you if you do just live shows, and if you don't have a video on YouTube. Like you have to have some digital reach, right? So
Yeah.
I think the first gen comics really got big soon because they put their videos on YouTube, right? I mean
Mm-hmm.
that's happening everywhere now.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think comedy is growing now at a rapid rate in India, and I think we have reached a point where there is a live audience for comedy. Like people know you, like 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 proper comedy goers, right? Now they know the artists by name, even if they are not there on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay.
uh,
Now,
was I clear? Did I make sense
no,
there?
that totally makes sense. And that's really interesting to me that stand-up comedy has developed in parallel to YouTube.
Hmm.
And do you think that that had an effect on the comedy that people did? Did people just put whatever they had up there, or were they really trying to like appeal to everybody and make everybody happy so that they have a YouTube following? And did you see kind of like, oh, this person is really good on YouTube and they have 5 million hits, but they've
Yeah,
sucked
yeah,
once they get on stage?
yeah, yeah. Okay. Um, so nobody has like 1 or 2 million views and they suck on stage. I think everybody who has those many views deserve them. And I think so what happened, I believe, is that let's say there is Abhishek Manu, right? From what I know is that, so he went really viral with his first 3 videos, okay? And I'm not sure which year they came out in, maybe 15 or 16, 17, one of these 3 years. But from what I know is that he did comedy for 5 years before he put stuff out on YouTube, right? So like he was
Mm-hmm.
there doing his open mics, doing his trial shows and all of that. So I think the first gen comics sort of got more time to build their material because there was no pressure of being on YouTube or of uploading content regularly. Now what's happening is that because as I mentioned to you, for the mainstream audience, comedy is still equal to YouTube content or like YouTube videos, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there is more pressure for newer comics to, like, if they want to sort of monetize their art, maybe, you know, uh, even
Mm-hmm.
through live shows, like for you to be able to sell out tickets you have to be there out on YouTube or on Instagram, or of you really have to be present on these platforms. So right now there is more pressure for the newer comics to put content on YouTube. However, I feel like the first gen comics, as I mentioned to you, like Kenny, Kanan, Abhishek, they were doing comedy like 3-4 years before they put out content on YouTube, which was unfortunately a requirement in India. I think they're all very, they deserve what they got, uh, right? Also, but on the other hand, um, um, they didn't have to work as hard as I feel. I mean, with all due respect to them, okay, I'm just saying that the process has been different in India, because like as you mentioned, in the 1960s 70s, like all the comics you mentioned, right, there was no digital medium, there was no medium as such, apart from television, right? So everybody had to like really be on the road, sell tickets, distribute flyers, sell merchandise and stuff like that. uh, the first gen comics in India didn't really, they became superstars of comedy, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's how different the game is right now. And
So
also I feel like I am just 3 year old on comedy. I am no authority to comment on how they've made it, or how they've grown, because I respect all of them. But because you asked me this question, I'm just telling you whatever I have read and known through my resource. Yeah.
no, and that is great. That's exactly what I want, is your perception of it. And to me, what's interesting is I've seen some comics kind of like hit the road overnight. Like they are just like they have one bit that really hits and it gets onto YouTube or it gets popular, but they have to rapidly develop their comedy, and like their popularity doesn't match where they are with their comedy,
Yeah, yeah,
because it takes
yeah,
so much time to develop.
yeah. I think one downside of having, I mean, I think it's almost become like a benchmark, that you're not good enough if you don't have a YouTube video. Like that is the
Mm-hmm.
benchmark with some comics, not all of them. So unfortunately, in the haste to upload a video on YouTube, or to just go viral, or like just become famous, I think a few comics are losing out on honing their art, like there
Yeah.
is so much more to stand up in the live performance aspect of it, than just the numbers on YouTube.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we're going to get to now that we can't have a live audience. So we're going to return to that. Anything that you would like to plug?
Yeah, so I am by the name, my Instagram handle. So my last name is Mantri, which also means minister in Hindi, right? Uh, my Instagram handle is I Mad Mantri, Mantri with a double I. My full name is Shweta Mantri, spelled as SWETAMANTRII. So yeah, people can follow me on Instagram and on Facebook. Yeah, I have my accounts, the public accounts there. And of course, I mean, I'm definitely won't be touring any of the Western countries soon, because I'm still honing my art. But yeah, one day if I come to the US or Australia or wherever, I definitely want people to come for my shows. And also, if any of your viewers are in India, they can get in touch, know more about the comedy scene in India if they want to, and I can connect them, or give them leads for other shows to go and watch and have a good time. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Um, what made you get into stand-up comedy?
So I work with crutches, and I have been talking about disability rights and mainstream inclusion for about a decade now. And I don't have any organization that I come from. But yeah, I've been trying to raise awareness on a personal level, individually, by talking, by organizing on ground campaigns, and writing plays and making short movies, and things like that. So there basically came a point where um, I kind of received backlash for um, I received backlash for being too straightforward about the issues faced by people with disabilities, because we stay in a society where people don't want to accept their faults, right? Like they all want to, yeah, they nobody wants to own up. They all like being hypocrites. So and the thing with me is that I, thankfully, with God's grace, I come from a good family. My parents are very educated. I have a postgraduate degree. I've done my MBA. So people kind of got back at me saying that, hey, you have a comfortable life and you have good parents, and why are you sulking and why are you cribbing in life so much? And I'm like, yeah, I have a comfortable living, but that does not mean that I would want to spend 250 rupees every time for a coffee, just because that cafe has a good washroom, as opposed to spending rupees 50 for a coffee, and going to a place that is more affordable. Like I can't go to the latter space because of the lack of good infrastructure over there. So just because I have I am right now have the liberty of going to an expensive place, that does not mean I would not want to enjoy saving money or just hanging out with my friends at a much decent space. um, so all those issues came up, and during that time I was watching stand-up comedy. And although I hadn't stumbled upon um, disabled comics doing comedy, I did watch a bunch of Indian comics, right? So personally, I'm a little sarcastic while talking. So I thought, why not bring these two together and give comedy a shot. Of course, the first few shows weren't that great. Um, and of course, my understanding of comedy was very skewed at that point in time. Like, of course, I didn't know the technical aspects or the process of writing a joke back then. But I think I kept at it. And what kept me going is that is just um, that feeling when people listen to you and like appreciate you, or give you an applause for what you've said. Because as a person with a disability, you often asked to shut up and like not talk, and you just not used to voicing your opinions that often, and you're made to feel guilty for even wanting the most basic human decency or respect, right? So
Mhm.
all these factors were not there when I was there up on stage and delivering a good joke. So yeah, I actually started doing comedy. Yeah, I mean, like in a nutshell, I started doing comedy because I wanted to talk about disability. Um, I wanted to talk about disability in a rather lighter manner and see if the audience accepts it. Right. So yeah, that was the intention. And it's not been easy, because when I am there up on stage with my crutches, people see my crutches first, and then hear my jokes, right? So it's still tough to do a punch down joke on myself, because we're all conditioned to not laugh at disability, right? So I have to first portray myself as a hero, and oh my god, I'm the best, I'm a badass, and then talk about the real issues that really matter to me. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that was just you talking about that. I had so many feelings. I like almost cried because it was like so much of what you said just totally hit me like so personally, and it's stuff that I don't hear about a whole lot because disabled comics don't necessarily do comedy because they're trying to do civil rights. But you are doing that. I am doing that. So like I heard my own story reflected a lot in you. And there's just, oh my God, there's so much there. So I'm going to ask you about it. So you said that when you were doing just advocacy, you were too upfront, that you would offend people.
Yeah.
And now you're doing comedy. Do people get less offended because you're a comic?
Okay. It's kind of strange. So yeah, people still, I wouldn't want to use the word offended right now, because right now I think I am more articulate in what I am saying.
Mm-hmm.
So they are they're not offended, they're just scared to respond in a public space, because they've been conditioned to not react to or not laugh at disability as such. Also, unfortunately, what happens is that people applaud or acknowledge you for the act of doing comedy as a differently abled person, as opposed to being funny and being able to deliver jokes, right? Like even when I get featured in newspaper articles, the headline is still disabled comic, blah, 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 talking about blah, blah, blah. There is, I mean, and as a comic, I know I have a long way to go, right? But people are just like, they're just merely acknowledging the act of me stepping out of home, me coming out, and me having the guts to talk about disability, as opposed to me being able to cracking a joke. So so they don't get they don't get offended when I'm talking about things in this context. But like, I am immediately inspiration zoned. Like, oh my God, so inspiring. Oh my God, you make me happy. You made my day. Oh my God, so cool. So yeah.
Okay, so I want to make sure that we have this term that you just used, because I have never heard it, and I want to know if you made it up. Inspiration zoned? Is that accurate?
I use that term, but I mean, in media, the term that is used, the relevant term for this is inspiration porn, right?
Yes.
Like, your inspiration porn immediately, like you just, yeah.
Okay, and
like,
so
people derive pleasure out of inspiration zoning us for their own ego and for their own benefit. Yeah.
And so you came up with the term inspiration zoned, just like men say that, oh, I was friend zoned, but we're inspiration zoned.
Oh, absolutely.
That. Okay, I'm gonna like make a little clip of just this, and that shit. Disabled people everywhere are gonna start using that word, because that is a great freaking term. And I've often been inspiration zoned. My favorite one was once, and this was pre-comedy. I was doing a presentation at a library, and a woman came up to me afterwards, older lady, who said this. Okay, ready? You are such an inspiration. If I talked like you, I wouldn't talk at all. It was like, not really a compliment.
Am I allowed to?
Yes, please.
Okay, fine.
Thank you. And then
hello, auntie, excuse me, I will, after this statement, I will make sure you don't talk, okay? And then we'll see what happens.
Exactly. And then also what I tell people, because when I do talks, and this works as a comic, people will say, oh, if you could do it, then I could do it too. I'm all,
Yeah.
no,
What's
I
your
am
experience
smarter.
now?
Exactly. I am
Yeah.
smarter and funnier. So no, you actually can't do it. And it's that
Yeah. Yeah.
inspiration thing. That's Stella Young, and Stella Young has one of the best um, TED Talks out there.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she was a disabled comic. So we have a legacy around the world, and she was Australian. And it's so great to kind of
Yes.
see all of that everywhere. So, okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Also, the other
Yeah.
thing that I wanted to acknowledge that you said, and I get it in a different way. If I'm at a dive bar with like people who are just there to drink, like, if it's like like a motorcycle bar, they won't they will laugh at me. Everything is fine. Everything is normal. But if I go to Berkeley, California, where everyone thinks they're so smart and they're so liberal and they are just down with everybody, they're not racist, they're not sexist, they're not ableist, they are the ones who will not laugh at me because they're
Yeah.
afraid to
Yeah.
laugh at the disabled person. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, if the disabled person is telling jokes and they're a comic, this is the one time you can do that. So why don't you take advantage of that? And that's what you encountered
Ah,
too.
yeah. 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 Exactly. It's a lot. Like you. I mean, even if the room is good and everybody's been killing, there is no guarantee that I will kill it as well. Not because my jokes are not good, but just based on how the audience perceives me. And I just want to share one more thing. um like there was this one time initially when we were at a good room. The audience was great. Every open micer was killing, and I thought I had killed too, because I was not doing any new jokes. I was doing old jokes. And what happened is, the entry to the stage was, I mean, it wasn't a stage. It was a room. So the entry to where the mic was slightly narrow. So it took me time to walk to the stage. And because it took me time to get on stage, the audience just got awkward. They sympathized with me before I even began delivering my jokes, and I bombed. Not
Mm,
because my jokes weren't good, but they just were not ready to look beyond this person who took time to get on stage. So there have
mhm,
been a lot of times that, like, after that experience, where I tell the comic, like, I tell them, like, if I am going to take more time to come on stage, please just keep talking to the audience, because I don't want that awkward silence before I get on stage, because then they won't talk. Like,
yeah.
um, a lot of times when let's say the stage, the step, the height of the step is higher, right? I avoid go, even though I avoid taking that step, because I know I will take time to go on stage, and I just don't want them to, I don't want that to affect how my jokes are perceived.
Mhm.
So this was something that I wasn't expecting at all. Like, people's understanding of my jokes actually depends on how much time I take to go on stage, and that's really funny to me. Like, it's really funny.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and it's the context of the environment. And sometimes, like,
Yeah.
I even find, like, once I went on at the Punchline, which is the home club around here in San Francisco, and the guy before me did a whole very anti disability thing that went really well, that the audience killed. It's like, and the audience laughed and they were on his side. And then I got up, and my first job and my first joke is that a disability is a physical or mental impairment that substantially results in having to deal with assholes. So I was calling out the whole audience, kind of, and I was so pissed off. I was so angry, but the host did a great job, Casey Lay, and he was amazing because he was able to kind of comment on, well, wow, this is awkward, like, he was really good. And so that it's the host kind of sews everything all together, and and their job is really important in how they do this. So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about is how are comics? Because I find that sometimes they're like, ooh, you have a stutter. That's going to make you famous because you have a thing. And I was like, well, I just want to do comedy. I don't want it to be a thing. And then other times they'll kind of look at me like, well, you're not really that funny because you have this thing. But like a disability joke only helps you for 2 minutes. After that, you have to be good. It's a novelty of having a disability wears off after 2 minutes. Then you have to perform and you have to be good. And you're not going to do this for 3 years, for 10 years like me, unless you love it and unless you're good at it. So what is the reaction from other comics? And do you find that they are either assholes or they're allies or somewhere in between?
Okay. Nobody's been an asshole to me because like we're still a very small industry. If you see even like pan India, right? We're still like everybody knows everybody. I know Delhi comic, Chennai comic will know a Bombay comic. Somebody will know someone from Kolkata. So it's a very small industry as compared to the US, obviously. And no one's been an asshole to me. But I will have to admit that because I have a unique voice, I am definitely given more preference because of the kind of jokes that I do, right? Because right now there are just two. I mean, as far as I know, there have been disabled comics doing comedy, but like not regularly. But there are only two women right now, like Nidhi Goyal, who's blind, and me, who are talking about disability through their comedy, right? So I am definitely put on a lineup because of course I have to be funny. Like I can't like bomb for 5 minutes and still be there. But I'm just saying that like I people do, like the comics do value my the unique perspective or the different perspective that I get. And like I don't have like all dark jokes, but they're partly dark and partly like taboo subjects, like I talk about sex and disability because I want to break that stereotype about disabled people being asexual or whatever. So I mean producers do give me a chance, knowing that there is a high probability of the audience pulling back, but they're willing to take that risk.
That's great.
Also, like, I mean, it's really funny, and it's going to be sad when I say this, but this entire narrative that you will be given an opportunity just because you're disabled, I had started to believe that somewhere subconsciously, but thankfully I got out of it really soon because I have we like about 3-4 female comics in Pune where I do comedy. So I have this friend called Ayushi and I have this friend called Anamika. So they are people who give me like real feedback, and they tell me when my jokes are going really bad, when they can see I haven't put in any effort to try new tags, or I am just getting very monotonous with my delivery. And so one of my friends, Ayushi, used to have a room, and there just came in a point where she's like, listen, okay, I can't keep giving you spots because you're a female comic and you're a disabled comic. You have to come up with 3 new jokes by the end of this week, or else I am not giving you spots. So I think I'm really grateful for these women who keep pushing me to write. But I mean, I don't kind of blame myself for it, because we being people with disabilities, we grow up with that narrative, right? Like, oh, you're disabled, oh, it's okay even if you breathe, it's okay if you fart, we'll accept you the way you are, So I think that subconsciously becomes your own message to yourself. But I think I did bring myself out of that very soon, and right now I am making an effort to write more regularly than I used to. So as you said, you're right, like disability can get you through only through the first 1 minute or till the first applause break. After that, your punchlines have to land.
Mhm.
Otherwise, yeah,
No,
nothing
and
happens.
it's to me, and I'd like to hear more what you think about how the comics react, because when I first went into the comedy world, like I felt at home a little bit because I was in special ed as a kid. I was in the resource room. I was around other kids who had learning and attentional disabilities, and we functioned in a very weird way. We were weird with each other. Comedy
Okay.
is weird, people are weird, but it's like embraces all of the misfits.
It
Does
does. It does.
Okay, so can you say a little bit about that? Because I I feel like I'm a very high functioning um comic, you know, like and there's a lot of there is diversity and everybody's kind of on the same level. So I was wondering if
Yeah,
you could
yeah,
talk
yeah.
about that.
Okay. I actually lost your voice in between. So you're just basically asking me how I feel, if I feel more at home doing comedy and being on stage.
Yeah, well, or but in terms of your relationship to the other comics, are they like a lot of times here? It's kind of the land of the misfits, and and they may not have a disability, but they've been kind of outcast to a certain extent, and then they all kind of find each other, and it works. Is there a similar thing
Mm-hmm.
that in terms
Yeah,
of the
yeah, yeah.
relationships?
Yeah. Okay, so I don't, I hope I can articulate this well, but I, so there's of course a difference in the way in the material of a male comic and a female comic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from what we know, like most of the men, they are non-confrontational, right? They're not used to confronting their own selves. They're not used to confronting anybody outside, and so on. So and also disability is a subject that people haven't come to terms with, and people don't understand why this needs to be spoken regularly. So although I haven't had any particular instance, like everybody's been really nice to me and really encouraging, I somehow do feel that some male comics maybe can't relate to a disabled woman going on stage and doing jokes on disability. you know I feel that is there, like that barrier between a male comic and a female comic, I feel. And that's got a lot to do with upbringing and conditioning and just the way you think. And yeah, however, there is a lot of solidarity when it comes to female comics. Like every female comic I've met has given me some great feedback. I mean, of course, male comics have done that too. But I feel like the men are a little more guarded while they're talking to me, because also again, like they don't want to offend me by saying something, right? Um, but there is more solidarity and acceptance when it comes to female comics, like Ayushi, Anamika, Samruddhi, Snigdha. We like female comics from Pune. Like Snigdha used to be here. So I think, yeah, they, like, I can actually crack real dark disability jokes with them. To give you an example, I was hanging out with this friend called Anamika, and one more guy came in, one of our friends or comics, and I'd actually gotten them a sweet, okay. And Anamika is like, hey, guess what, Shweta got us a surprise. And the guy is like, oh, what's a surprise? And Anamika is like, guess what, she can walk again. So like, had there been somebody else, like people would have gotten freaked out. But like
Yes.
we laughed at that joke for like 20 minutes, like, of course I called Anamika names, and I'm like, how can you even say that to me? But I knew it was just for the joke purpose, right? And it
Mhm.
was to make that entire situation more fun. So what I'm trying to say is that there is definitely acceptance. more acceptance when it comes to discussing issues with female comics. Also, like by one of the comics, she lost her mom early on, and she talks about having a life without a mom. And I'm like, hey, you at least have legs, right? You can at least go out of your house if you fight with your dad. What can I do? Sulk in my room and cry. you know. So there is that acceptance of each other's darker sides where we can have these real conversations. Like every time a Pune comic cribs in front of me, and I'm like, hey, you can at least get on stage and do comedy, right? I can't even get on stage without help. Now tell me, now what? Right? And everybody's like, okay, fine, I'm sorry, I'm not talking to you. So yeah, what I'm trying to say is that yes, there is more acceptance, there is more transparency when it comes to interactions with comics. Like you can be your real self. You don't have to indulge in small talk. Like, oh my god, the weather. Oh my god, did you watch Big Bang? Oh my god, have you done this? Oh my god, this trend. Have you made dalgona coffee? No, like there's no scope for small talk. Also, I think as comics we understand um, the strength it takes to write about our own issues, turn them into jokes, and deliver that on stage, right? Which is why I think we're more accepting of each other's challenges in life. Like, I mean, I know for sure that if I'm actually vulnerable, or if I'm in a crisis situation, like honestly, like my first instinct is to call up a female comic first, and then call up my any other friend. Because I mean, I don't know. I think female, I think comics just have that thing of, they have that wholesome understanding of emotions, I feel. So they're not going to call you out for being overly vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
um I hope I've managed to answer that well.
Yeah, no, I think there's so much there. That's great. Now, tell me, how have you been? What have you been doing in the quarantine? Are you doing any shows? What's the scene like now during this?
Oh, I was actually a part of a comedy festival for the first time in my life, and the entire festival got rescheduled because of COVID. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So yeah, that was a huge blow because I was really, really looking forward to it. Also, this, like, the curve started growing in March, which is when, like, it's the Women's Day month, all of that, like, which is when most gigs come our way. So yeah, there was some cancelled gigs as well. How I am keeping myself going is, thankfully, a few organizers have arranged for online open mics. So I have managed to perform twice or thrice. Like I did my 5 minute bits. It was a very daunting experience because you have to you have to keep looking for the smile emoji and the laughter emoji, and like understand whether the joke has worked or not. It's a completely different, like, nobody imagined doing comedy in a bedroom, right? Ever in the history of comedy. Like, that was never an option, and we are having to do that, and that's strange. um, I also went live on a couple of Facebook pages of friends where they wanted people to engage with the audience and interact. um, I have this like I have this show called With This Ability, which is basically comedy and conversation on disability. So I used to do that at least once in 3 months. So I did a similar format, like a very similar but small format of the same thing, where I did jokes for like 7 minutes, and then I took about 3 questions on disability that people have. So yeah, I've been trying to work out options and just try to add meaning to this mess and chaos, and not lose my voice. Yeah.
Oh yeah, not losing your voice. That's so important.
That's
Yeah.
and if I may add, uh, as a comic who's doing jokes on disability, I sometimes feel that I might be too harsh on not harsh, but maybe inconsiderate when I'm talking about disability, because right now the entire world is going through a pandemic and all of that. But I'm like, what the fuck, like why not?
Hmm.
Also, the pandemic or the lockdown has given me a great opportunity to kind of be relatable, because earlier I would struggle to make accessibility or going out of home a relevant issue. But now that everybody has accessibility issues, and now that everybody is like locked up home, I'm like, yes, bitches, now you know what I feel. So uh, like I did one of those jokes uh, um at the online open mic, and it did well. So yeah, I'm just like, oh, this is your first time being at home. Oh, so sad. uh,
That's
yeah.
great. And so, and what I like about that is, like, when I go onto the open mics with the comics in my area, it's basically like the same 5 to 10 jokes, but you have a perspective with your voice that is unique and funny in that. And because there's not a lot of disabled comics, especially ones who
Yeah,
have
yeah,
the experiences being home,
yeah.
that you're able to bring that in. So that's really cool.
Thank
Um,
you.
how, okay, let's see here, because we talked about a lot of these things already. How do you think
Yeah.
that COVID and the quarantine will change the landscape of stand-up comedy? Do you think the way that we do comedy after this is going to change?
Mm, I definitely. Um, I think, like, from a wholesome perspective, I think laughter will have more value, right?
Mhm.
Uh, as an emotion, like, people would want to laugh more and just enjoy more, and all of that. Yeah. Also, I think we all would have gone through a similar dark experience by the end of this pandemic. So I think I think there will be scope for us to laugh more on the darker things. Like,
Mhm.
I feel earlier there has been a reluctance from the audience's side, maybe, but now that we've gone through something so real and so dark, and something that's so indefinite, and we don't know how and when this is going to end. I think maybe on the other side, we both have a chance to laugh at something together. um
Mhm.
yeah, I think that is definitely going to change. uh yeah, I think that's about it. Also, I think, like, of course, there'll be more quarantine jokes and more pandemic and COVID-19 jokes for sure. Yeah.
Yes, hopefully
But
they'll be
I
good.
also feel like, I also, sorry to interrupt you, but I also feel like, let's say, for example, accessibility, right? Like these other normal able bodied people took going out for granted, and took these small visits to cafes for granted and stuff like that, right? I think people will be more aware and conscious and grateful of about the things uh, that matter to them as such, right? So I think both the comics and the audience will have newer perspectives towards things, and I think that in itself will expand the scope of comedy.
Yeah. Yeah, and my
Yeah.
next question was, because, like, the next question that you already answered was, how will this change these sensibilities of people's perception of comedy and humor? And I think you really hit it on the head with, like, um this is the first time that the whole world has gone through something shitty, in
Yeah.
India, in
Yeah, for
England,
sure.
in America, like everywhere, the same shit shitty thing. Now, some people, it's shittier than for others. But it's that same thing. And so it's this equalizer. And I wonder, how humor will change. And you said that like maybe people will appreciate humor more because we need to laugh, and disabled people kind of know that like
Yes,
we know that like we can talk about some shit and it's funny and it's okay, where other people don't. Do you
I'm hoping that people like now that we've all collectively gone through a darker experience, I think people will like loosen up more, and maybe I'll have more people be open to more jokes on disability and accessibility, which wasn't an option earlier.
And I think like when their basic needs are in jeopardy for everybody, it kind of opens them up to like looking at things in a different way. Because I think disability, a lot of times people get intimidated because they're like, oh, that could be me one day. It's the only my minority group that you could become a part of like overnight. And now, and that's where they're like, oh my God, I don't want to see you and be reminded of my vulnerabilities. Right now, everybody's kind of vulnerable.
I never thought of it in that way, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way. I always thought that people don't want to laugh at disability because they either feel sympathy or because they like inspiration zone. But like mostly it's sympathy because like, oh my God, this is something that's bad that's happened to you. How can I laugh at you and make a fool out of myself? So yeah.
Yeah. So, you know what? We talked about everything. This has been great. What do you think people will say about this period of comedy in 100 years?
Every generation of parents, right? They have this way of talking to their children. Like in our times, this is how we went to school. In our times, things were so bad. In our times, blah blah blah. I think we're just going to be that generation that says in our times there was a pandemic and all we had to do was sit at home and watch Netflix and chill.
Chill without anybody to chill with.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, apart from this very cliched answer, I don't think I can think of anything better right now. But I think I think this is the easiest way to beat a crisis, We're not having to do anything but just sit at home and sleep. Yeah, like it can't get better and worse at the same time. Our dear Prime Minister asked us to do a couple of things to express gratitude to the frontline workers. One of the first tasks was to go in your balconies and clap and bang utensils and do things like that. A lot of people came on roads in groups and celebrated and like banged utensils like it was a festival, and some people called it the Corona Festival. And the second task was to sort of lamp diyas, like lights, candles in your balcony to express solidarity. Some people came on the streets to burst firecrackers. My God, yeah. Like stupidity is everywhere, and that is the biggest. That I think that's the next pandemic that we're going to be a part of.
Yeah,
we already are.
Can you remind everybody of your Instagram?
Yeah. Hello, I am Shweta Mantri, spelled as SWETAMANTRII, and my Instagram handle is iMadMantri, IMADMANTRII. I'm a stand-up comic and a disability rights activist and a writer, and I am not an inspiring human being. So you can definitely choose to follow me on Instagram and on Facebook, and let's connect. And yeah, I'll try to generate more content that will keep you happy and engaged during and sane in this quarantine.
But not inspired. But not inspired.
Not inspired. No. I can inspire to like put on weight and be a bad lazy person, but that's about it. Yeah.
But in a pandemic, that's what we need. So thank you for being an inspiration in that way.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you for your time. I know, right? Oh,
thank you for having me. That's so nice of you. You're so inspiring yourself. Wow, look at your smile. Your smile makes my day. It melts my heart. How
yes, look at my smile.
At the same time?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
That is so true. Yeah. It's so good to see.
Yeah, the kind of shit people have told us, right? Like, I think if all disabled comics come together, we can put together 3 specials for sure.
We should have like a disabled comedy festival on Zoom.
And I hope I've made sense because I'm not really used to giving these verbal interviews a lot.
Oh my God.
I tend to digress.
No, you are so smart, and you really are, for being 3 years in, you're equally as articulate and thoughtful about these things as people who have been in it longer. So it was really nice to see that. And also, like, we're just in sign language, the sign is this, which is like we're on the same wavelength. No, like from my head to your head, that way, yes. And so it was really nice to have that too. And Inspiration Zone, like that's so good. I'm gonna edit the fuck out of that, and we're gonna put it online, and people are gonna use it, and that may get you famous.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah, sure.
And I will come to California and party with you soon, hopefully.
Oh, I would love that. All right, I will talk to you soon.